For 3 glorious seasons, she was America's favorite aunt, the elegant, intellectual, and fiery heart of the Banks family. Then, season 4 rolls around, and poof, she's gone, vanished, replaced by a new model. What followed wasn't a quiet exit, but a 27-year, no-holds-barred public brawl, fueled by accusations, career-ending labels, and a painful secret that tore a beloved TV family apart. This is the real messy story of what went down between Will Smith and the original Aunt Viv, Janet Hubert. Section 1. The Golden Era. Back in 1990, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air crash-landed on our screens and pretty much became an instant cultural icon. It was the perfect fish-out-of-water story, held together by the megawatt charisma of a young rapper from West Philly named Will Smith. The show was funny, it was stylish, and it had a surprising amount of heart, mostly thanks to the cast's incredible chemistry. At the center of it all was the Banks family, and the heart of that family was Vivian Banks, played by the Juilliard-trained powerhouse, Janet Hubert. Hubert's Aunt Viv wasn't your average sitcom mom. She was a force of nature, a university professor with a PhD. She was smart, she was poised, and she could drop a flawless dance routine just as easily as a devastatingly witty comeback. She was the matriarch who somehow balanced her family's chaotic energy with a firm but loving hand. The chemistry between her and the young, loudmouthed Will was electric. She was his anchor in the strange, bougie world of Bel-Air. The aunt who believed in him, but also had no problem putting him right back in his place. For 3 seasons, everyone loved Janet Hubert's Aunt Viv. She brought a dignity to the role that grounded the whole show. But behind all the laughter and choreographed dance numbers, things were starting to get ugly. Section 2. The cracks appear. The trouble really kicked off during season 3. On camera, the cast was a well-oiled machine. Off camera, not so much. Tensions were simmering, especially between the show's skyrocketing star and its established matriarch. Around this time, Janet Hubert got pregnant, and the writers cleverly worked it into the story with the birth of baby Nikki. But this period also marked a huge shift in Hubert's mood on set. What nobody knew was that Hubert was living a private nightmare. She was in what she later called a very abusive marriage, and her husband wasn't working. The crushing pressure from her home life, on top of being pregnant, started to wear her down. In the 2020 reunion, she admitted she wasn't the fun, laughing person she used to be on set. She became isolated, saying, "I just stopped talking to everybody because I didn't know who to trust." From Will Smith's point of view, this just looked difficult. He was only 21, suddenly the face of a monster hit show, and the pressure was insane. He later admitted he wasn't sensitive or perceptive to what Hubert was going through. He saw her pulling away, not as a sign of distress, but as a personal attack. That massive misunderstanding set the stage for a conflict that was about to go nuclear. As he put it years later, "I can see where I made the set very difficult for Janet." Section 3. The difficult label. As things got more tense on set, so did the stories about Janet Hubert. The first public shot? That came from Will Smith himself in a 1993 Atlanta radio interview right after Hubert left the show. He decided holding back was optional. "I can say straight up that Janet Hubert wanted the show to be the Aunt Viv of Bel-Air show," Smith claimed, painting a picture of a bitter veteran jealous of his fame. He even quoted her as saying, "I've been in the business for 10 years, and this snotty-nosed punk comes along and gets a show." Then he dropped the bomb that would follow her for decades, calling her the Antichrist. That one interview lit the fuse. The word difficult was now permanently attached to her name. In Hollywood, especially for a black woman, that label is basically a career death sentence. Hubert would later call it the kiss of death, and other cast members piled on. Alfonso Ribeiro, aka Carlton, was especially eager to back Will up. In a stand-up set years later, he claimed Hubert had gone nuts and that her behavior was unacceptable. He said things got so bad that the cast felt like she'd destroyed the show's family vibe. With Will Smith's star power exploding and Ribeiro co-signing his story, the narrative was set in stone. Janet Hubert was the problem. She was unprofessional, egotistical, and fired for being a diva. For years, that was the only story anyone heard. Section 4. The firing and recasting. The end came without any ceremony at all. When The Fresh Prince came back for season 4 in 1993, Janet Hubert was simply gone. In her place was actress Daphne Maxwell Reid. There was no big farewell. Instead, The show made a winking, fourth wall-breaking joke about it. Jazz turns to the new Aunt Viv and says, "You know, Mrs. Banks, ever since you had that baby, there's something different about you." But for Hubert, this was no laughing matter. The story everyone ran with was that she was fired. According to Hubert, however, that's not quite how it went down. During the reunion, she explained that after season 3, they offered her a really bad deal. The new contract meant a massive pay cut, only 2 months of work, and, here's the kicker, she wasn't allowed to take any other jobs. She had a new baby and an unemployed husband. "I was trapped," she explained. "So I said, no. I did not accept their offer. I was never fired." When she turned them down, they just shrugged and recast the part. Hurt and backed into a corner, Hubert walked away. She claimed she had even asked Will to help the whole cast band together to negotiate for a raise, like the casts of White shows did. She said his response was a cold, "My deal is my deal," and "Your deal is your deal." So whether you call it a firing or a contract dispute she couldn't win, the result was the same. The original Aunt Viv was out, and her career was about to be torched by her former co-star. Section 5. The War of Words. For the next 27 years, the feud played out in public. It was a long, bitter war of words fought in interviews and eventually on social media. Hubert, feeling blacklisted and betrayed, refused to let the difficult narrative go unchallenged. In 2009, she published a memoir, Perfection is Not a Sitcom Mom, where she called Smith an egomaniac. Then, in 2011, when Smith posted a cast reunion photo, Hubert's response to TMZ was pure venom. "There will never be a reunion, as I will never do anything with an A like Will Smith," she fumed, adding, "unless there is an apology, which he doesn't know the word." The attacks got more personal. She accused Smith of making colorist jokes to the studio audience and took aim at Alfonso Ribeiro, calling him Will's asswipe and a media hoe. Hubert's position was always the same. Smith and Ribeiro had destroyed a 20-year career with untruths. For most of this time, Smith, who was busy becoming one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, stayed quiet. His first interview had done the job. But as the years went on, his tone started to change. In one interview, he even called her a brilliant and powerful artist. A little late for that, perhaps. The damage was done. Hubert's career was dead in the water. As she put it, "Words can kill. I lost everything. Reputation. Everything." The feud became legendary, a dark cloud hanging over a show that millions adored. The world had picked a side, and it was with the Fresh Prince. Aunt Viv was left to fight for her name, all by herself. Section 6. Hubert's side of the story. For 27 years, Janet Hubert's voice was mostly a whisper against the hurricane of Hollywood opinion. But she never stopped telling her side of the story. From her perspective, she was a seasoned pro, pushed to her breaking point by a toxic workplace, personal chaos, and the unchecked ego of a kid who got famous too fast. Her real problem wasn't just the bad contract, it was the sting of betrayal and the complete demolition of her reputation. "Calling a black woman difficult in Hollywood is the kiss of death," she tearfully told Smith in 2020, pointing out how much harder it is for a dark-skinned black woman in the business. Hubert insisted she was never unprofessional. She was just isolated and in agony. She was pregnant and in an abusive marriage, with nobody to talk to. The happy, energetic person the cast once knew had disappeared, replaced by someone just trying to get through the day. "I was no longer laughing, smiling, joking, because there were things going on that nobody knew about," she revealed. The financial pressure was suffocating. That bad deal felt like a power play designed to humiliate her. Turning it down was a huge risk, but accepting it felt like giving up. The fallout was immediate. She said her own family disowned her, and Hollywood slammed the door in her face. The whole ordeal was so traumatic, she even considered suicide. She felt totally alone, exiled by the industry and the people she once considered family. Section 7. The Reunion. Then, after 27 years of public feuding, the impossible happened. For the Fresh Prince 30th anniversary reunion on HBO Max in 2020, Will Smith and Janet Hubert sat down, face to face. It was raw, it was emotional, and it finally let the truth come out. Smith started by admitting he felt he couldn't celebrate the show without celebrating her, and confessed, "I don't know your story." That was all Hubert needed. She finally shared the full weight of her hidden struggles. The pregnancy, the abusive marriage, the isolation. "You have no idea," she told him. For the first time, Will seemed to get it. He owned up to his part, chalking it up to his own youthful fear. "I was 21 years old," he said. "Everything was a threat to me." He admitted he wasn't sensitive to her pregnancy and had made the set difficult for her. In a moment of brutal honesty, Hubert told Smith exactly how his words had killed her career. Smith listened, and with tears in his eyes, he apologized. "The person I want to be is someone who protects you, not someone who unleashes dogs on you," he said. In return, Hubert apologized for blasting him in the media for so long. It was a breakthrough. The special also showed the first-ever meeting between Janet Hubert and Daphne Maxwell Reid, who embraced warmly. Hubert called the whole thing healing, and you could practically feel a 30-year weight lift off her shoulders. So, there you have it. A story with more drama than a whole season of Bel-Air. It's a masterclass in how Hollywood narratives get written and rewritten. But hey, the 90s were full of behind-the-scenes bombshells. What other TV feuds from that era are still living rent-free in your head? Drop them in the comments below. The beef between Will Smith and Janet Hubert wasn't just on-set drama. It was a lesson in the power of a single word, the chaos of fame, and why you should probably check in on your pregnant coworkers. For decades, a simple, one-sided story defined Janet Hubert's career. It took nearly 30 years for the whole truth to surface, revealing a story of hidden pain, a young star's insecurity, and the devastating cost of being labeled difficult in an industry that has no mercy. The 2020 reunion wasn't just about closure, it was about accountability. Will Smith, now a global superstar, had the humility to face his past and listen to the pain he'd caused, and Janet Hubert finally got the chance to reclaim her own story, to be seen not as a diva, but as a woman who survived an impossible situation. Today, their relationship is proof that even the most bitter feuds can end. Hubert has said they now text each other, having found a real friendship after decades of hate. She's found peace, and Smith has continued to express his regret over his horrible error. The story of Will Smith and Janet Hubert is no longer just about why Aunt Viv was fired. It's a story of forgiveness, healing, and how two people finally reshaped the legacy of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air into one of ultimate reconciliation.